My name is Aria Dawson. I'm 34. And my stepmother told me a grown woman I'd have to pay for my own meal in a dazzling high-end brasserie that dripped with wealth I was meant to crave. She slid a plain glass of tap water across the table with a bored flick. It stopped in front of me like a slap. Across from me, her son Nash devoured abalone, the rich scent taunting my empty spot. My father Slate just nodded at his steak. "Remember your role," he said, voice low. Anger surged, but I held it. I met Nora's smug eyes, my father's silence, and smiled. Cold. Sharp. "Noted," I said. One word. It landed hard. She had no idea that smile started her downfall. The spark was coming, and she was about to light it. Before I reveal how the head chef's entrance ended more than just dinner, comment your city below. Let's see. 8 years after Mom passed, the house in Peoria still carried the sour mix of damp wood and scorched coffee that never quite aired out. The quiet that followed swallowed every room whole. My father, Slate Dawson, disappeared into warehouse overtime, coming home with engine grease on his cuffs and a stare that slid right past me. The electric bill arrived in angry red print, the freezer held more ice than food, and I learned to doctor canned beans with ketchup to make them last. At 20, Slate married my stepmother, Nora Bennett Dawson, a real estate agent whose voice could slice bread and whose smile stayed locked in place like a showroom sign. She moved in the next weekend, luggage wheels rattling across the hardwood, bringing her son Nash Bennett, a 4-year-old tornado who treated the living room like a jungle gym. The courthouse wedding happened on a Thursday. I only discovered when Nora updated the mailbox label to include her hyphenated name. Nora redrew boundaries before the paint dried. Nash claimed the spare bedroom that once stored Mom's Christmas ornaments, his action figures now sprawled across the carpet I used to vacuum every Sunday. My room stayed mine on paper, but Nora decided the closet needed shelving for Nash's board games, and my sweaters ended up in grocery bags stacked in the hall. The desk I used for homework migrated to the laundry room because Nash required space for a plastic kitchen set that arrived in 3 oversized boxes. Birthdays became public scorecards. Nash turned 5 that June, and Nora rented the park pavilion with a bounce house and a sheet cake iced in primary colors. Neighbors brought gift bags stuffed with toy cars, and Nash tore open a green bicycle with training wheels that sparkled under string lights. My 21st passed 3 months later. Nora slid a $10 gift card across the breakfast table, saying malls were more my speed anyway. I spent it on printer paper for college essays, the receipt tucked into my wallet like evidence. Dinners shifted to assigned stations. Nora sat at the head, Nash glued to her side, my father across like a silent umpire. I perched on a bar stool by the sink plate on the counter, while platters circulated beyond arm's reach. On lean weeks, Nora boiled spaghetti with jarred sauce, but Nash scored the meatballs, forked over with praise for his healthy appetite. I twirled plain noodles, adding salt from the shaker to give them flavor. Sleep turned negotiable. One Saturday, Nora announced my room would transition into Nash's big kid zone. My bed frame disassembled and leaned against the garage wall mattress, hauled to the living room sofa that folded out into a lumpy slab. The first night springs poked through thin cushions, and I layered towels for padding. Nora called it temporary until the spare room paint cured. Temporary stretched into semesters. Money funneled one way. Slate started signing Nora's documents after Nash's bedtime stories, his pen moving across refinance applications and credit line increases. I spotted the folder's second mortgage, personal loans tied to Nora's commissions. Warehouse hours got cut, and my father patched income with weekend mechanic work for neighbors. Nora covered gaps with closing checks, reminding us nightly how her hustle kept the lights on. Hustle came with expectations. Nash needed new cleats for t-ball. Hand-me-downs looked cheap. Nash enrolled in swim lessons. Coordination mattered. My wants stayed off the ledger. School offered oxygen. I stayed late for study hall, joined yearbook to use the darkroom after hours, anything to delay the sofa descent. Nora attended every preschool graduation for Nash, but emailed regrets for my awards assemblies citing buyer walkthroughs. My report cards earned nods that never translated to conversation. Once I won a citywide poetry contest. Nora used the certificate to shim a wobbly coffee table before recycling it. Weekends meant labor division. Nash watered the front planters for praise, not pay. I scoured bathrooms, hauled trash bins to the curb at dawn, and folded laundry into neat stacks without a cent. Early finishes triggered extras. Clean the fridge coils, organize the spice rack dust sealing fan blades. Compliments went to Nash for carrying his cup to the sink. Corrections landed on me for water spots on faucets. My father watched baseball from the recliner, beer balanced on his knee, commentary limited to the score. Every dime I earned came from late-night shifts at the 24-hour diner on main wiping tables after the bar crowd stumbled in for greasy hash browns. Nora never paid for chores. She called them family contribution. I stashed tips in a coffee can behind the water heater, counting toward application fees. When Nora found the can during basement reorganization, she asked my goal. I said tuition, and she mentioned Nash's upcoming dentist copays. The can stayed put, relocated deeper behind pipes. Routine hardened the lines. Nash sprawled across available space, his drawings taped over Mom's old calendar. I shrank footsteps soft to avoid notice, presence noted only when dishes piled up. Sofa nights blurred together, the television's glow, my nightlight. Counter meals became default, the bar stool my permanent post. I assembled sandwiches from lunch meat ends when Nora ordered Chinese for her and Nash, mustard masking stale bread. My father ate in silence, eyes on the screen, words saved for weather reports. By 22, I managed grocery runs when Nora traveled for listings, negotiated payment plans with the gas company, and scheduled Nash's haircut because someone tracked the calendar. Nora called it initiative. I called it unpaid overtime. Systems ran because I caught the leaks she missed, yet praise defaulted to her color-coded binders. My father rubber-stamped whatever required his mark, the stack growing like unpaid invoices. Those 8 years taught lessons no textbook covered. I learned affection could be metered in square footage, that parental silence cut deeper than arguments, and that endurance often meant becoming the glue no one acknowledged. Nora built her empire on selective investment, and I provided the mortar she never credited. Nash absorbed privileges without curiosity, blind to the scaffolding. My father enabled the architecture with passive consent, trading involvement for quiet he never truly secured. The sofa remained my address until night classes started at the community college, bus schedules dictating my hours. Home became a pit stop for clean socks and microwave dinners, the pullout still waiting if I missed the last route. Nora installed a chalkboard wall for Nash's doodles, but the living room stayed unchanged, cushions bearing permanent indents from my shape. Nash claimed the television remote full-time volume high enough to drown homework. I adjusted. Adjustment was the only constant. Senior year arrived when I was 18, with the acceptance packet from the University of Illinois, carrying a full-ride scholarship for tuition, room, and board. The envelope landed in March, and I read it twice in the counselor's office before hiding it in my backpack like a getaway plan. Teachers offered tour rides while I mapped Peoria to Champaign buses. The future finally felt solid, a clean exit from bar stools and borrowed corners. The collapse came 2 weeks later. My father suffered a severe workplace injury during overtime, leaving him hospitalized with multiple fractures and requiring emergency surgery. Sedation lasted 48 hours, machines tracking every breath. I held his hand when a loud whispering about finals. The warehouse filed bankruptcy that week, dumping medical debt on whatever remained after Nora's refinances. Nora visited once, heels sharp on tile, blazer crisp. She scanned monitors like damaged goods. When I asked her to cut listings for discharge help, she laughed loud. "Figure it out yourself," she said. "I'm not the maid." She left a card with Nash's crayon son and returned to closings. Her checks paid the mortgage, not therapy copays. The scholarship needed fall enrollment and a May deposit. I stared at forms while my father dozed in the recliner we dragged home. Instructions listed daily medication therapy appointments clashing with Nora's showings. Someone had to drive manage recovery. Nora made clear that someone was me. I shredded the deposit and mailed the deferral family emergency typed in the blank. Waitressing became the lifeline. I took doubles at the downtown bistro apron over loose jeans tips in crumpled bills covering deductibles and refills. Mornings meant protein shakes. Afternoons laundry with hospital linens, evenings trays balanced amid wine debates. Nora drifted through, leaving mugs and flyers, expecting dinner hot on return. She mocked me the night I served canned soup after the burner died. "Don't play hero," she said over wine, "it'll just waste your life." I stirred anyway, adding basil to hide the tin. My father ate quietly, nodding for water. Therapy meant driving him to sessions, fighting insurance for extra visits, celebrating 10-second stands. Nora texted about Nash's poster board deadlines. Cooking turned rebellion. Library books taught knife skills. I practiced on onions after last call. Recipes grew to roasted roots he could chew, sauces stretched with flour. The bistro gave day-old bread and trim for stock in labeled containers. Nora ate 3 helpings of discount wine chicken but complained about garlic on blazers. Praise stayed silent, seconds loud. Therapy advanced in inches. My father moved from wheelchair to cane, then block shuffles I timed on my phone. Insurance capped at 20 sessions, so I learned exercises online, guiding leg lifts on carpet. Pain spiked on humid days, needing ice and elevation costing campus visits I never booked. Scholarship reminders piled unread. Night classes at community college became the trade-off, 2 courses paid in tips. Books bought used. Household duties landed without vote. I called plumbers for leaks. Nora ignored, negotiated electric plans when bills doubled, stocked generics. Nora deposited checks and signed Nash's slips. She dined clients at steakhouses while I reheated leftovers, cutting meat small. The bistro offered full-time post-graduation with benefits. I accepted for stability over deferred dreams. Culinary skills sharpened under fire. I blended market spices for cheaper cuts, perfected risottos needing constant stirs like the care he required. My father asked for lemon chicken seconds, first praise in months. Nora photographed salmon for socials untagged. Kitchen became classroom burners, professors, ingredients tuition. Recovery marked the calendar. My father walked the driveway unaided, 6 months post-discharge. Kane retired on the porch. Insurance settled with a check barely covering transport. I framed the summary beside Nora's awards. She pursed lips and moved on. The bistro promoted me to lead server, salary funding community college without loans. The sacrifice calcified. Full ride faded to community credits, transferring slow toward business management. Tips paid texts, scholarship cash to lingering debt. Nora never noted the swap, her world widening as mine fit manageable pieces. My father's steps measured success, each validating hospital room choices. Cooking shifted from duty to craft flavors, filling gaps left by lost lecture halls. The bistro kitchen hinted at professional paths. Chefs taught cuts and reductions between orders. I practiced with discount produce. Community professors granted extensions for late therapy runs. The scholarship file closed with regret I felt long before the letter. Caregiving eased. My father managed meals, solo scheduled follow-ups, handled stairs. I cut shifts, added classes, savings from skipped meals, buying books. Nora's absences lengthened into overnights. Routines I set, ran meal plans on fridge meds in containers, laundry timed. She gained without giving, nitpicking towel folds. Culinary confidence rose. I hosted coworker dinners, feedback cutting sharper than grades. Recipes turned original, margins scribbled. My father requested weekly favorites, appetite back with motion. Nora styled my plates for listings, garnishes my idea. Counter became workstation boards, scarred spices alphabetical. Cooking compensated for opportunities traded. Acceptance settled. Dreams contracted to reality credits slow but steady. Nora expanded territory untouched by the trade-off. My father's recovery became metric-independent steps proof of choices made under fluorescent lights. Culinary craft readied for futures unnamed. 23 arrived with a classified ad for a battered coffee cart listed at $2,000, the exact amount stashed in my savings account from years of tip jars and skipped lunches. The seller met me in a dusty parking lot outside the city, limits the cart's faded paint peeling under afternoon sun espresso machine, rattling like loose change when he demonstrated the pull. Rust spotted the chrome, but the grinder still spun true, and the steam wand hissed with promise. I handed over the envelope of 20s earned one plate at a time, loaded the cart onto a borrowed trailer, and drove home under streetlights that felt like spotlights on a new chapter. Naming it came easy. Rose Brew honored the woman who taught me flavors before words. Her garden roses clipped into vases on Sunday mornings, while coffee brewed strong enough to wake the neighborhood. I sanded the cart in the driveway, after shifts primer coats applied between community college lectures, decals ordered online, with a logo of intertwined petals and steam. The first test run happened at dawn in the empty lot behind the house. Beans ground fresh from a local roaster who offered wholesale rates for cash up front. Latte art started shaky hearts collapsing into blobs, but practice tightened the pour until roses bloomed in milk foam. Customers trickled in from morning joggers and construction crews, drawn by the hand-painted sign and the scent of cardamom lattes wafting across cracked asphalt. I parked near office parks during lunch rushes, chalkboard menu listing seasonal specials scribbled in colored markers. Revenue covered bean costs by week 2, propane by week 4, enough left to replace the leaky group head with a refurbished part shipped overnight. Word spread through social media posts tagged with location pins, followers growing from dozens to hundreds as photos of rose-shaped foam went viral in local foodie groups. The mentor appeared on a rainy Thursday. Mira Ortiz, owner of 3 downtown cafes, pulled up in a sleek van umbrella shielding her tailored coat as she ordered a honey lavender latte to go. She watched the poor eyes sharp behind designer frames, then asked to taste the espresso straight. One sip, a pause, another. She handed back the demitasse and introduced herself fully, voice carrying the authority of someone who had built an empire from farmers' market stalls. "Meet me tomorrow at my flagship," she said. "Bring your roast notes." I arrived with a notebook filled with ratios and temperature logs, heart pounding louder than the grinder. Mira's guidance transformed experimentation into strategy. She dissected my sourcing, connected me with importers for single-origin beans at bulk discounts, taught inventory turnover formulas that kept waste below 2%. Weekly sessions in her back office covered licensing health codes and branding consistency, her red pen marking margins with questions that forced precision. She loaned equipment during upgrades, introduced suppliers who extended net 30 terms once sales reports proved reliability. The cart's menu expanded to cold brew concentrates and pastry partnerships with a nearby bakery, margins climbing as volume doubled. Garage operations launched 6 months later. I converted the unused space behind the house into a prep kitchen, stainless tables, salvaged from restaurant auctions, shelves lined with airtight canisters labeled by origin. Permits arrived after inspections passed with flying colors. The health department, impressed by temperature logs and sanitation protocols, Mira drilled into routine. Driveway service started at 5 in the morning, lines forming before sunrise for commuters grabbing rose-infused mochas on the way to highways. Revenue funded the first fixed location lease in a strip mall with high-foot traffic build-out, completed in sweat equity and favors from contractor friends met through Mira's network. Expansion accelerated under calculated risks. The second location opened in a college town satellite campus. Student baristas hired from my old community college network schedules, synced with class breaks. Mira reviewed profit-loss statements monthly, green-lighting the third site in a revitalized warehouse district where artisanal vendors clustered. Each store carried the Rose Brew signature rose water syrups, petal garnishes, foam art that turned drinks into social media moments. Supply chains centralized through a shared warehouse, bulk orders negotiating better rates as volume hit pallet levels. Staff training manuals codified Mira's standards, ensuring consistency from pour times to customer greetings. The fourth and fifth branches targeted corporate parks and hospital lobbies, locations scouted during delivery runs that doubled as market research. Mira attended ribbon cuttings, incognito pride, evident in her nod when lines wrapped around corners. Annual revenue crossed seven figures by year 4, enough to hire a general manager who handled daily operations while I focused on product development. New seasonal menus launched: quarterly rose hibiscus refreshers in summer, spiced petal lattes in winter, each tested in the original garage that now served as innovation lab. Lumiere entered the picture through a discreet broker contact Mira trusted. The upscale brasserie carried a price tag that made bankers blink, but anonymous LLC filings kept family names off paperwork. I toured the space after hours, marble counters gleaming under pendant lights, kitchen equipped with appliances that hummed like symphony orchestras. The purchase closed in cash from reinvested profits, title transferred without fanfare or family knowledge. Renovations preserved the bones while infusing rose brew elements, rose gold accents. Petal-infused cocktails, a coffee program that elevated beans to center stage. Operations scaled seamlessly. Mira transitioned to advisory board role, quarterly meetings reviewing expansion pipelines and sustainability goals. Fair trade certifications secured premium pricing, carbon offsets calculated for every mile the original cart traveled. Community givebacks included scholarships for culinary students, applications reviewed blindly to avoid bias. The garage hosted workshops for aspiring entrepreneurs, chalkboards, once again filled with dreams instead of menus. Brand recognition grew organically. Food magazines featured the Rose Latte as signature drink of the Midwest travel blogs, listed Rose Brew as must-visit for caffeine aficionados. Franchise inquiries arrived weekly, vetted carefully to protect quality over quantity. Mira's influence ensured growth stayed rooted in craftsmanship, each new manager required to master the original cart before touching a La Marzocco. Profit margins funded research into plant-based milks and compostable packaging, innovations tested in the flagship before rollout. Lumiere's integration remained the crown jewel. Dinner service incorporated coffee reductions in sauces, desserts, layered with espresso mascarpone pairings suggested by sommelier, trained in both wine and bean profiles. Reservations booked months out, critics praising the seamless fusion that started with a rusty cart in a parking lot. Staff cross-trained between concepts, baristas moonlighting as mixologists, servers fluent in origin stories that turned orders into conversations. The empire operated like clockwork. Centralized accounting tracked every bean, software dashboards displaying real-time sales across locations. Mira's final lesson emphasized delegation, trusting systems built on years of trial and refinement. Annual retreats gathered managers in the original garage, now restored with vintage photos of the cart's first day, reminders that scale began with single pulls of espresso. Rose Brew became more than a name. It represented resilience measured in steam pressure, growth tracked in harvest yield, success quantified by smiles over perfectly poured roses. Mira attended the 5th anniversary celebration, quietly raising a demitasse in toast to the student who once arrived with trembling hands and temperature logs. The journey from classified ad to multi-unit operation proved that foundations laid in sacrifice could support structures beyond imagination. The invitation arrived on heavy cardstock with the Lumiere crest embossed in gold, Nora's looping script commanding my attendance at 8 sharp for a family celebration. I replied with a single text, selected a pressed black sheath dress from the dry cleaning bag, and arrived alone in a rideshare that deposited me beneath the valet's glowing lanterns. Hostesses in tailored uniforms recognized me instantly, guiding me past velvet banquettes and crystal sconces to the corner booth that commanded views of the open kitchen. Nora waved with a flash of diamond bracelet, her sequined gown refracting every spotlight like a disco ball. Nash lounged beside her in a navy blazer already stitched with the Yale crest, the thick acceptance letter propped against the breadbasket as if it were a centerpiece. My father sat opposite Ty, nodded with military precision eyes, scanning the wine list as though memorizing vintages could postpone the inevitable. Nora launched without preamble. Early decision full merit scholarship, she proclaimed, voice slicing through neighboring conversations. She recited Nash's perfect SAT, his leadership in 3 honor societies, the legacy interview that sealed everything, each achievement punctuated by delicate sips from a crystal flute. Servers materialized with amuse-bouche on slate tiles. Nora directed the foie gras torchon to Nash, first insisting he sample the delicacy before anyone else. Compliments rained on him alone, the table's gravity shifting with every accolade. My dress drew the opening salvo. Nora leaned across the linen perfume thick, inspecting the fabric with theatrical disdain. "Still shopping off the rack, I see," she announced loudly enough for the sommelier to falter. "Looks like the help on their night off." Nash snickered into his water goblet. My father cleared his throat in that familiar warning rumble. I smoothed the skirt beneath the table, the garment chosen for clean lines and quiet authority, and requested sparkling water when the server finally reached me. Leather-bound menus arrived. Nora orchestrated selections with the confidence of a conductor consulting Nash on every preference. Diver abalone for the star, she declared truffle risotto to start, Wagyu strip loin medium rare. Plates emerged in choreographed waves, abalone sliced paper-thin and fanned around a glistening citrus reduction. Nash attacked his portion with the entitlement of someone who had never known scarcity, fork flashing between bites and tales of campus tours. My place setting remained empty, save for the bread plate. Nora slid a plain glass across the cloth, tap water sloshing against the rim with bored precision. "If you want to eat," she said, eyes glittering, "you'll cover your own tonight." My father glanced up from his steak knife, pausing. "Remember your role, little girl?" He muttered the words heavy with every previous surrender. I traced the glass rim condensation cool under my fingertip. Nash demanded extra truffle shavings on his risotto. The chef accommodated with a flourish from the pass. Nora angled her phone to capture the spread Yale letter centered in every frame. Dessert menus followed, chocolate souffle versus seasonal fruit tart. Nora insisting Nash order both to mark the occasion. My father produced his platinum card in anticipation. The captain presented the check folder. Nora nudged it toward me with a manicured nail. "Your half." She smiled sweetly, "since you're so independent." I lifted the water glass in mock toast. "Noted." Nora's brow arched in triumph. Nash smirked. My father exhaled, tension easing. Beneath the tablecloth, my thumbs flew across the screen. "Mira, it's time." Reply flashed instantly, on it. The captain returned for signatures. Nora slid her card for the bulk. Nash requested a doggy bag for the untouched tart. I rose smoothly, excusing myself with a polite smile. Nora called after me about family photos. I continued toward the host stand. The kitchen doors swung open. The head chef emerged in crisp white's eyes locking on our booth. He carried a gold-foiled folder, not the check presenter. He halted at the table. "Madame, a matter regarding payment." The folder revealed corporate documents, not a bill. Nash's fork clattered. My father stared at the Lumiere seal. The chef's voice carried. "All charges comped per the proprietor." Nora paled beneath sequins. I stepped forward. Staff parted like curtains. The chef extended his hand to me. "Welcome back, Ms. Dawson." The kitchen doors parted again with theatrical timing, Mira Ortiz emerging in a tailored midnight suit that commanded the room more than any chef's coat. She moved with the grace of someone who had orchestrated expansions across state lines, her presence pulling every eye from neighboring tables. The head chef stepped aside, deferentially gesturing toward our booth, where Nora's sequins had lost their sparkle under the sudden scrutiny. Mira stopped at the table's edge, smile sharp and welcoming voice, projecting with crystal clarity over the hushed dining room. "Welcome to the restaurant of Aria Dawson," she announced, the full name landing like a verdict in the sudden silence. Phones lowered mid-photo, forks hovered, forgotten, the air thick with the weight of revelation. Nora's champagne flute slipped from her fingers, bubbling liquid spreading across the linen like an accusation. Nash's Yale letter fluttered to the floor, the embossed seal staring up blankly. My father gripped the table-edge, knuckles whitening against the polished wood. I rose slowly from my seat, the black sheath falling into perfect lines as I faced them fully. "Who is the side character here?" I asked, the question hanging in the scented air without need for volume. Nora's mouth opened-closed, no sound emerging from lips painted victory red moments earlier. Nash shrank against the banquette blazer suddenly oversized on his frame. My father stared as if seeing me for the first time, the daughter who had folded laundry and negotiated bills, now standing in ownership of the very room that once reduced her to tap water. The captain appeared with the final bill, leather folder opened to reveal the itemized total of $2,300 exactly. Mira nodded toward the terminal, her expression professional courtesy wrapped in steel. "Payment required upfront for comp reservations that no longer apply," she explained, the words precise as a contract clause. Nora fumbled in her clutch fingers, trembling over designer wallets until she produced a platinum card that caught the light like a white flag. The machine beeped, acceptance receipt printing with mechanical efficiency. Staff materialized around the booth, subtle but immovable, ready to escort if necessary. I moved closer, heels silent on the marble that my contractors had selected during renovations. "Thank you for visiting," I said, voice carrying the calm of someone who had calculated this moment across years of tip jars and night classes. "Now leave." The directive needed no emphasis, delivered with the finality of a closing door. Nora stood on unsteady legs, sequins scraping against leather as she gathered her purse. No apology formed on her lips, only the stunned realization that her stage had been someone else's all along. Nash followed, acceptance letter crumpled in his fist, the Yale crest now meaningless paper. My father rose, last movement slow with the weight of every signature he had placed on documents that never included my name. They moved toward the exit in a procession that parted, the crowd whispers following like smoke. Mira watched them go, then turned to me with the nod of a partnership completed. The dining room gradually resumed its rhythm, conversations restarting in lowered tones, the revelation becoming tomorrow's gossip. I returned to the booth, sliding the receipt across the linen where Nora's card had been. The total stared back, every dollar a lesson in value that no merit scholarship could teach. The chef approached with a fresh demi-tasse espresso, pulled with the precision that had built an empire from a rusty cart. Mira accepted her own, raising it in quiet toast to the space we had claimed. Staff circulated with complimentary desserts for affected tables, the gesture smoothing any lingering disruption. The marble counters gleamed under pendant lights installed during the anonymous purchase, every detail now carrying my imprint. Nora paused at the host stand, one hand on the doorframe, as if steadying against vertigo. She looked back once, eyes meeting mine across the distance, but words failed her completely. Nash tugged at her sleeve, urgency in his whisper about the valet. My father followed without a backward glance, the man who had enabled architecture now walking through its ruins. The doors closed behind them, the Lumiere crest catching the light one final time. The captain confirmed the transaction complete, card returned with professional neutrality. Mira reviewed the evening's numbers on her tablet, revenue intact despite the comp adjustment. The kitchen resumed its symphony plates, emerging for reservations that understood the new order. I traced the table's edge, feeling the grain installed by workers who knew me only as the owner on paperwork. Diners at adjacent tables stole glances, recognition spreading through murmured connections to Rose Brew locations. The revelation rippled outward social media, already capturing the moment in discreet videos. Mira closed her tablet, satisfaction evident in the set of her shoulders. The space felt different now, the air cleared of performances that had no place in reality. Staff cleared the booth with efficiency, linen replaced silver polished for the next party. The Yale letter remained on the floor until a busser retrieved it, folding the paper with care before disposal. The evening progressed into late service, the restaurant operating at capacity under ownership that had earned every inch. Mira excused herself to oversee the bar program, her guidance complete in this particular chapter. I lingered at the pass, watching expedited tickets flow with the precision drilled through years of expansion. The total of $2,300 represented more than a meal. It quantified every sacrifice measured in community college credits and skipped opportunities. Nora's card had paid for the privilege of learning who held the power all along. The night wound down with last call for desserts, the kitchen breaking down stations with practiced rhythm. Mira returned with final reports, numbers exceeding projections despite the interruption. The revelation had cost nothing but pride, gained everything in clarity. Staff clocked out with bonuses for handling the situation seamlessly, the team that had grown from garage operations now managing fine dining with equal expertise. Nora's collapse played in memory without satisfaction, only the neutral acknowledgement of consequences long deferred. No apology would come, the silence more honest than any words she might manufacture. The restaurant continued its pulse, reservations booked solid through the season, the name, Aria Dawson, now synonymous with the space that once served tap water. The lights dimmed gradually, signaling close, the marble cooling under foot traffic that had witnessed history. Mira locked the office safe, final deposit secured for morning pickup. The evening ended as it began, under chandeliers that illuminated truth more brightly than any spotlight Nora could command. 2 weeks later, the local paper splashed a front-page feature titled "Lumiere Where Dignity Speaks." The reviewer chronicled the evening's seismic shift from calculated exclusion to unapologetic empowerment, omitting names, yet painting every detail: the corner booth, the sequined gown, the untouched water glass, until the entire city recognized the tableau beneath the chandeliers. Reservations locked solid for 8 months within hours of publication. The online portal crashed twice before engineers scaled servers and implemented waitlist lotteries. Revenue soared 400% quarter-over-quarter, viral shares and influencer reenactments pulling diners from 3 states away, many booking flights just to sit in the infamous booth. Nora's professional collapse began that same morning. A luxury condo developer terminated her multi-million-dollar advertising contract with a single email, explicitly citing the article's optics on public judgment and brand misalignment. Former clients flooded her brokerage with transfer requests. Her once-packed calendar bled, white open houses canceled for lack of interest. Voicemail overflowed with polite but firm cancellations, the silence between rings growing longer each day. Quarterly estate review routine procedure. Mira insisted on uncovered a quit-claim deed transferring the family home to Nora's sole name months after the funeral. Forensic ink analysis, pressure mapping, and handwriting comparison confirmed forgery beyond doubt. I retained probate counsel specializing in elder fraud and filed emergency motions for fraudulent conveyance, plus partition of marital assets. The judge, reviewing bank statements and contribution logs, restored the property to the original estate. Equity split heavily favored Mom's initial down payment and subsequent mortgage payments made before Nora's refinances. Movers arrived at dawn under sheriff supervision, boxing designer handbags and color-coded binders, while new smart locks clicked into every exterior door. The house finally aired free of damp wood and scorched coffee sunlight streaming through windows Nora once claimed as her staging props. Phone numbers changed without ceremony or explanation. Nora's calls routed to auto-delete voicemail, Nash's texts blocked alongside my father's rare hesitant attempts. Nash's wedding invitation arrived months later. Thick cream stock gold foil calligraphy addressing the entire family returned unopened, with no forwarding address, the envelope sliced cleanly by the post office. The cutoff became absolute, a boundary drawn in legal filings, digital silence, and the quiet satisfaction of reclaimed space. Lumiere waitlists stretched 10 months private dining requests, tripling for corporate events seeking the story's aura. Revenue-funded Rose-named scholarships for first-generation culinary students' applications, reviewed blindly to honor the merit Nora once mocked. Nora's real estate license entered formal ethics review after multiple complaints. Nash deferred Yale, citing family matters in a terse social media post that garnered sympathetic likes but no solutions. My father sold warehouse tools at weekend flea markets and downsized to a studio apartment that required no maintenance from anyone else, the recliner, his only remaining luxury. The house transformed into office and mentorship hub, the garage, once Nash's playroom, now lined with framed Rose Brew awards and photos from every opening. Neighbors who once attended his bounce house birthdays now booked Lumiere for milestone anniversaries, nodding recognition across linen tablecloths without needing to ask. True family proved chosen, not blood. Mira hosting quarterly strategy dinners, with staff who started as baristas, community partners, becoming regulars whose loyalty spanned years and zip codes. Real family stays when you need them most, not those sharing DNA. Thank you for reading to the end. Share your takeaway. What hit hardest or what lesson lingers? Your thoughts. Finish the story.